During the Cold War, the number one enemy of the United States was another superpower, the Soviet Union. The United States has always called on the world to unite Western allies with free trade and universal values. The United States portrayed the Soviet Union as a demon and transformed itself into an angel of justice. The Soviet Union has always been at a disadvantage in the competition with the United States because it focused on military and heavy industry and neglected the development of light industry and the improvement of people's livelihood. Although it has been the world's second for decades, it has never really had the opportunity to surpass the United States. In the 1980s, the economy of Japan, the son of the United States, was soaring, and electronic products and automobiles swept the United States. 6 of the top 10 semiconductor companies in the world were once occupied by Japan. American companies were helpless in front of the Japanese and had no competitiveness. Therefore, the United States and Europe sent the Japanese to the table and put it on the menu, relying on the U.S. military occupation of Japan to force the Japanese to sign the Plaza Accord. Since then, Japan has been in a slump and fell into the lost 30 years. The Japanese may not have thought that the United States, which has always been shouting for free trade and holding high the banner of ideology, was eager to attack itself when the Soviet Union has not been defeated. All this has nothing to do with freedom, democracy, or universal values. It is because Japan threatens the position of the United States as an industrial hegemon. No matter who is the second largest country in the world, it will be hit by the United States. This is the basic national policy of the United States. This technique was taught to them by the British. In 1997, Wall Street used the imbalance of macroeconomic data and excessive deficits in Asian countries as an excuse to short Southeast Asia and began to fleece Asian countries. Many Southeast Asian countries have accumulated wealth for decades, which was looted by the United States. This move directly interrupted the road to revitalization of Southeast Asian countries and plunged them into an economic trough. America's own son Japan and adopted son South Korea were not spared and paid a lot of protection fees. But when the United States harvested Hong Kong, it was strongly counterattacked by China and failed. The Chinese government used foreign exchange reserves to defend the Hong Kong dollar, causing Soros and other financial tycoons to withdraw at a loss. However, in the financial war of 1997 to 1998, the United States simply won. So, even if you develop in a corner of the world with peace of mind and do not threaten the United States, as long as you are fat, you can't escape the harvest of the United States. In 2008, China's GDP was 4.6 trillion US dollars. Japan's was 5.1 trillion US dollars, the United States was 14.8 trillion US dollars, and the European Union's was as high as 16.2 trillion US dollars. In addition, the euro is stronger than the US dollar, which seriously shakes the US dollar's status as a world currency. I think if the United States, on the grounds that China is an authoritarian country, joins Japan and the European Union to launch a trade war and a technology war against China at this time, instead of dragging it out until 2018, China will surely collapse quickly. However, people who are familiar with the United States should know that the U.S. national policy is to clean up the world's second largest country. Although Europe relies on the United States militarily, its economy has surpassed the United States, which is unacceptable to the United States. In 2008, the United States had a subprime mortgage crisis, and it should have been unable to recover and give up its position as the world's largest country to the European Union. But the United States has a trump card in its hand, and its Anglo-Saxon relative, the United Kingdom, is its undercover agent arranged in the European Union. The United Kingdom has always been at odds with the European Union, refusing to join the Eurozone, and always singing the opposite tune and disrupting the rhythm at the key juncture of the EU's deepening integration process. If the euro can be defeated and the dollar's status as a world currency can be preserved or even strengthened, then the United States will surely prosper again. Yes, Americans think so and do so. The Americans use the same old tricks again. While attacking the euro, they created a series of subversive activities in the Middle East, which set off the so-called Arab Spring and caused a serious refugee crisis. Most of these refugees could not reach the United States, but poured into the European Union, which had a disastrous impact on Europe's social stability, and seriously divided the unity of European countries, causing the European Union to fall into endless quarrels and eventually fall apart. When the agents of the United States in Europe occupied the moral high ground and accepted a large number of Middle Eastern refugees, the decline of the European Union was doomed. The war in the Middle East and the refugee crisis caused by it made the European Union exhausted, while Wall Street shorted the euro through a series of operations, and large companies in Silicon Valley also used the United States' size advantage to sweep across Europe. European companies that once dominated the world, such as Nokia, were swept into the garbage dump of history by Apple in the United States. Alstom was dismembered by the U.S. government and forced to sell 70% of its energy business to General Electric in the United States. In short, by 2015, the U.S. economy surpassed the EU. And in 2016, the UK held a referendum to demand Brexit. Do you think these are coincidences? In fact, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, the United States has never made a breakthrough in productivity. On the contrary, the United States' ability to create wealth has been declining. But the U.S. economy has been growing all the way. The fundamental reason is that as the only superpower and the issuer of the world's currency, the U.S. dollar, the United States can periodically reap the world and pass on economic crises to other countries, until China rises. In fact, when the United States cleaned up the European Union in 2015, the Obama administration had already discovered the danger of China's rise. In 2016, Trump relied on playing the China card to win and entered the White House. He first cleaned up all the allies, established good relations with Russia, and then attacked China. In 2018, after China rejected the Trump administration's sky-high demands, Trump launched a trade war against China. According to the Americans, under the isolation of it and its Western allies, China should be defeated and surrendered soon, and pay a huge protection fee to the United States in exchange for the possibility of continuing to develop its economy. But this time, the Americans hit a wall. One important reason why the Americans were able to succeed in attacking Japan and the European Union was that their security depended on the United States, and their diplomacy also depended on the United States. China, on the other hand, is a country with a triad of nuclear strike capabilities and independent diplomacy. China also has the most complete industrial system in the world. In 2018, China was already a true world factory, with productivity and efficiency far surpassing that of the United States. The Chinese government's decades of low-key national policy also hides a lot of strength. The American cyclical strategy of harvesting the world and shifting the economic crisis has a side effect, which is to cause serious inflation internally and aggravate the government deficit. Therefore, every time the execution is completed, it is necessary to cultivate and digest the harvest. But in 2018, the speed of China's rise has left Americans no time to digest and absorb. The U.S. government is desperate, accelerating the printing of money and attacking China through a strong dollar, trade war, and technology war. Just like Nazi Germany's blitzkrieg against the Soviet Union, and it must win with one strike. It can be said that the Americans succeeded 80%. The problem is that China has held the bottom line and has not collapsed. Since Trump lost to Biden in the 2020 election, the military-industrial complex encouraged the Biden administration to trigger the Ukrainian war. The United States and Western countries have consumed most of their national strength in confronting Russia, giving China a chance to breathe. Chinese factories are still producing high-quality, low-priced goods and selling them all over the world. Chinese technology companies are also breaking through the monopoly of the United States and the West in various fields, making Western companies panic. The United States can only rely on generative AI and high-end chips to keep up appearances, and it has to face the consequences of decades of deindustrialization. After the Sino-US trade war breaking, the European Union, Japan, South Korea, Canada, Australia, and other countries are firmly standing by the United States to confront China and become pawns of the United States. However, the United States did not thank them. The Trump administration continued to blackmail them, asking them to make trade concessions to the United States and pay more protection fees. Although Biden has been in power for 4 years, they have gained some breathing space. But Trump's re-election will undoubtedly make them desperate. The result of confronting China is also simple. China will also clean them up. After several years of trade confrontation, all of the followers of the United States are facing economic difficulties, especially the European Union. In the face of China's industrial tsunami, the EU has completely lost its footing. It has to think about its China policy, whether to act as a pawn of the United States and confront China to the end, or to remain neutral and stay out of it. After all, no matter who wins, it is not their turn to sit in the position of the world's boss. If the United States wins, it will continue to cut the wool of Europe and treat Europe as a watchdog. If China wins, it will definitely retaliate against Europe's backstabbing. In contrast, Asean did not take sides in the Sino-US trade war, but chose a pragmatic neutral policy. This has a lot to do with Singapore's influence. It was Singapore that patiently persuaded countries that were wary of China to put aside verbal disputes and focus on economic development. ASEAN was not only not affected by the trade war, but also took over a large number of manufacturing industries from China during this period, ushering in new development opportunities. Due to the length of the video, we end here. I will update the video later to explain the similarities and differences between ASEAN and the EU, and explain what historical opportunities ASEAN has and how to develop into a world pole comparable to the EU. See you next time.